Happy New Year's! To start out the new year, I will be making prime roast for the first time. I will also be cooking with my brand new pot collection for the first time. I'll show you guys what that looks like a little bit later. But for first, we have these ingredients. So I have my prime roast here. I have my broccolini potatoes. I have some multicolored potatoes and I have some regular gold potatoes. They're bite-sized potatoes. Also have some garlic, some butter, Dijon mustard. I have some chives, thyme, rosemary, and beef stock. I will also be using some other ingredients that aren't here, but I will announce them as they come. So stay tuned on how I prepped this beautiful prime roast last night, aka New Year's Eve. All right, so here's my prime rib. Here's my fresh sea salt, not fresh, but fresh enough. Here is my string that I'll use to tie up my meat, some paper towel to dry it off, and my sheet pan. So first off, chop. I am going to use my knife to trim off the fat off the beef. This is important because you don't want your meat too fatty. When it comes out, you don't want to be biting into a whole bunch of fat. You just want enough to take care of it. Okay, now that all my fat is trimmed off, or enough of it, I will begin removing the bone from the prime rib. This helps with flavor and for me to get underneath the bone, get the rest of that meat all seasoned up and prepped for tonight. Now, I do gotta say it was hard removing this bone from this meat, okay? It was a tough cookie to cut. But I made it work with my little arm muscles. We just, we cut it out, but we got it. All right, as you can see here, I finally did it. I removed the bones from the rest of the prime rib. So now I can get some seasoning up in there and close it right back up. Now I am patting the meat dry. You want to make sure to get rid of all the excess moisture so that when you add in the salt and brine it overnight, it can have the chance to soak in and won't already have too much moisture to it. This helps with cooking, this helps with flavor, everything. Alright, now that I've patted my meat dry, we'll begin to salt brine it for the night. I'm going to generously season this meat with salt because, boy, it's a big chunk of meat and we want to make sure it's not fresh, but it's seasoned, okay? And don't worry, we'll pat off and scrape off most of the salt for the next day. So you don't have to worry too much about it being too salty because the salt is not necessarily to season it from now, but it's to bring out the juices and lock it in, so when you do season it, it'll just all come together like one. I'm making sure to get the top parts, the sides, the front, the back, all 4 sides of this beautiful prime roast evenly coated with some salt for the night. Alright, this is what my finished product looks like. And now I will be tying it up so it can go in the fridge. 1 second, I forgot my scissors. Here it is. Okay, Now I'm cutting up my string into like enough pieces so that I can tie it around the meat and make a good nice knot to lock it up. Okay, now that my prime rib is all tied up and locked up, we are putting in the fridge overnight. Okay, now that we've seen how I prep my prime roast, I will be making a compound butter and seasoning it up and putting it straight in the oven. Okay, now for my compound butter, I'll be adding in some softened butter to a measuring cup. Okay, I will also be adding in some rosemary, thyme, chives, and garlic to my butter. For the rosemary, I break the leaves off the stem. Just like that. We want a good bit, but not too much. Rosemary is a key ingredient in like compound butters usually, and when all the flavors from the herbs are just combined together, it just tastes amazing, especially with thyme. I like rarely hear about rosemary being in a dish without thyme. They go hand in hand. Okay, now that I've broken apart my rosemary off the leaf, I will be chopping it up pretty small. You don't want to bite into it or stand out or overpower the other herbs. Okay, now that my rosemary is chopped up pretty small, we're going to be adding it to the butter. Next is our thyme. I start by taking the sprigs of the thyme off the stem. Makes it easier. My compound butter, just about the same amount as the rosemary. It's optional how much you want to put in there, depends on your preference. Now I'm going to chop up my chives. I'll be doing the same, about 2 tablespoons of chives. Okay. I'm gonna add these in here. Last thing I will chop is my garlic. You can roast it, you can zest it, chop it up finely, whatever your desire is. I will be chopping it today because of time. I wanted to roast it, but it takes time to roast garlic. So this one was 2, and then it broke into 3. So 3 cloves of garlic today since I already peeled it. Okay, now that I've minced my garlic as best as possible, I will be adding it into my compound butter with my herbs. Okay, for seasonings now, I will be adding in black pepper, do about 2 teaspoons of black pepper. I'm gonna add some parsley flakes. Same with that, 2 teaspoons. Garlic, 2 teaspoons. And onion powder, 2 teaspoons. Okay, now that my seasonings are all in the little dish, I'm going to be mixing them around. Also, I'm not adding in any salt because I already salt brined the meat and the butter is salted, so I don't need any extra salt. So, going back to my compound butter now, I will be adding in some Dijon mustard. This is honey Dijon. You can use regular Dijon or honey. This is just to add a little bit of a different flavor to the compound. Not too much, about a tablespoon. I'll be adding in half of this, half of my seasoning, and I'll save the other half for the top of the roast. Now I'm mixing in all my herbs and seasonings in my butter, making sure it's nicely evenly blended. Now my butter is all combined, so I will be rubbing my roast with it, and then it'll go straight into the oven. I'll also be adding it to the bone part because we can eat that too. Save that for later. I saw something that said that's for the chef. The chef gets to have the bones. A little treat to the end. Additional treat. Now I'm just moisturizing this beautiful piece of meat. Just getting it all in there, all around it. Now I'm going to tie it back together after I season the bone part, which is just as important. It's also part of the meat. my roast back together. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. Okay, now that my prime roast is all seasoned and evenly covered, I put the bone back under it and I put the rest of the roast back on top to use that as a arch to support it while it's cooking, so it can have somewhat of a shape of a steak form. It's going to cook at 300 degrees for an hour and 30 minutes, and then I'll turn it up to 500 degrees for 15 minutes and take it out and let it rest. I forgot to say that I added the rest of my seasonings to the top part of the meat, so that goes on top of it. Now it's gonna go in the oven, I promise. Okay, after my steak has gone in the oven at 300 degrees for an hour and 30 minutes, I took it out, let it rest for like 30 minutes, and I'll be using the juices from the drippings from this pan for my Ajuja sauce. Okay, so for the first time using one of my Martha Stewart pink pots, I boiled some potatoes. I know, quite simple, but I'll be adding in some olive oil, drizzling that around. Some sea salt, good pinch, some black pepper, and then some garlic powder. I'm gonna mix that around and add this to this baking sheet. I'm gonna add my potatoes to the sheet. Actually, it doesn't need to be oiled because I already oiled the potatoes. Duh. Yeah. Add them to the sheet. Nice and oiled up. Spread them out. I'm gonna mush them a little bit. Not too much. But it won't. Certain look I'm trying to go for. Now once my roast is done, I'm going to put these in there and get them so nice and crispy, and then bam, we'll be done with our first side, and I got to do the broccoli. For my Ajuja sauce, I added some of my pan drippings and some flour, about a tablespoon of flour, mix that around. Now I added in about a cup of beef stock, enough to make a good decent sauce for all my meat. I added in some red wine, about a half a cup of this. Mix this nicely, and next I will bring it to a boil. This is what it should look like at a boil. Then you want to reduce it to a simmer. Add some salt, stir it around, and it should be slightly thick. Time for the reveal. This is my beautiful pot roast. My first time making this. I was so happy and excited. It looked beautiful. I got a nice medium pink color. And my potatoes, of course. This is what it looks like when it was all carved up. I had some help because it was quite hard, but it looked beautiful, still pink and juicy, and we digged in, okay? Happy New Year's. Also, my plating, I will show you guys, was beautiful as well. Doesn't that look like a 5-star meal? Make sure to like and subscribe.